One of the greatest captains in the history of Starfleet, Jean-Luc Picard served aboard the Federation flagship USS Enterprise D from 2363 to 2371, making a name for himself as an exceptional diplomat, strategist, warrior, and commander, exploring new worlds and civilizations to boldly go where no one has gone before. Yet among the many challenges, mysteries, and adventures he faced, some few stood out for the profound impact they had on his life, expanding his mind and perspective to ideas and possibilities never before considered. Such was the case in 2368 on Stardate 45047.2 during an event remembered as Darmok, when the Enterprise D traveled to the el-adrel system to meet with the children of Tama. Although this species was somewhat familiar to the Federation, with 7 encounters over the last 100 years, formal relations were not established because their language was deemed incomprehensible, and so their peoples could not properly communicate. Nevertheless, the Tamarians eventually sent a subspace message of a standard mathematical progression, indicating they wanted to attempt another discussion. When the Enterprise arrived at el-adrel 4, Captain Picard hailed the Tamarian ship, but as always, neither side could understand each other. Frustrated, the Tamarian Captain Dathon held up his knife, along with the knife of his first officer, and said, "Darmak and Jalad at Tanagra," before his people transported him and Picard to the planet's surface. To prevent either ship from using their transporters or communicating with the captains, the Tamarian ship projected a particle scattering field onto the ionosphere, though they could still use sensors to monitor what was happening. Unsure what the Tamarians were doing, William Riker, the first officer now acting captain, believed the aliens would not wish to escalate the conflict further by firing their weapons, and so ordered a shuttlecraft to descend upon the planet. Meanwhile, Picard attempted to ascertain why he was brought to the surface, but still could not understand Dathon, who again held up 2 knives and repeated the phrase, "Darmak and Jalad at Tanagra." Picard assumed this was a request for a duel and refused, which disappointed the other captain, who replied, "Shaka," when the walls fell. Later that night, Dathon sat by a fire while his human counterpart struggled to make his own, and so the Tamarian gave him a burning branch while saying, "Tamba, his arms wide," which Picard understood was an attempt to help, and so offered his gratitude. On the Enterprise, the Chief Tactical Officer Worf led a rescue mission aboard the shuttle Magellan, but did not make it far, as the Tamarian ship fired a precise shot at the starboard nacelle, disabling their thrusters and forcing them to retreat. Impressed by their shot, which damaged the shuttle without hurting anyone, Riker held a meeting with the senior staff, where Chief Engineer Geordi LaForge presented a plan to bypass the scattering field and use their transporter, but claimed he needed a day to make it work. In the meantime, Riker assigned Lieutenant Commander Data and Counselor Deanna Troi to study the Tamarian language and report their findings. Back on el-adrel 4, Picard awoke alone and started to look through Dathon's belongings, finding what appeared to be a notepad with log entries. Yet his investigation was interrupted when the Tamarian captain hastily returned, once more offering the knife while frantically repeating, "Darmak and Jalad at Tanagra." Again, Picard refused until he heard the sounds of a large creature approaching and realized Dathon was not offering the weapon for a duel, but as a means of defense against a dangerous threat to them both. In orbit, Worf detected an electromagnetic disturbance, which indicated a life form moving toward the captain, possibly to attack him, and so Riker ordered the engineering team to use the modified transporter method, though LaForge warned it was not ready and likely would not succeed. On the surface, Dathon went over a battle plan, saying, "Uzani, his army with fist open," and "his army with fist closed." Given the context of their situation, Picard finally realized the Tamarians spoke by citing example or through metaphor, saying they must position themselves apart to lure the enemy, then close in to attack. Pleased the human was starting to understand, Dathon joyfully shouted, "Suket, his eyes uncovered." Engaging the creature, which was able to cloak itself and appear invisible, both Picard and Dathon landed blows and might have stood a chance, if not for the Enterprise crew attempting to beam back the captain as he moved to help the Tamarian. Yelling out in frustration, Picard was frozen in place while Dathon was severely beaten and left mortally wounded before the creature departed. The unsuccessful transport then released the captain, who rushed to Dathon's side, hearing him say, "Shaka," which Picard now understood was part of a phrase that indicated failure or defeat, and so finished the sentence by replying, "When the walls fell." During the attempted transport, the Enterprise sensors detected that the Tamarians' life signs were weakening and could not understand why the other ship made no attempt to save their captain. Soon enough, Riker learned their plan failed, and the Tamarians deepened the scattering field further into the ionosphere to prevent another transporter attempt. Worried that the captain might have to fight the creature alone if it returned, Riker ordered LaForge and Worf to modify the phasers so they could disable the other ship's generator powering the scattering field with a single shot, but still hoped that would not be necessary, and so asked Data and Troy to present their findings. After re-watching footage of the Tamarians, they cross-referenced the conversation with the computer database, and learned that some of the words might come from the nearby planet Chantal 3, like Darmok, which was a mytho-historical hunter, and Tanagra, which was an island continent. As a result of this analysis, Data and Troy believed the Tamarians communicated through narrative imagery, giving the example of Juliet on her balcony, which to a human would refer to the Shakespeare play Romeo and Juliet, thereby conjuring an idea of romance. However, without knowing their history, culture, and mythologies, it was near impossible to understand the context or meaning of their words. On the planet, Picard sat by the fire with the dying Tamarian, using the few phrases he learned to ask what this was all about, saying, "Temba, his arms wide," Darmok, which roughly translated to, "Give me more information about Darmok." Through narrative imagery, Dathon told the story, saying, "Darmok on the ocean, Tanagra on the ocean, Darmok at Tanagra, Jalad on the ocean, Jalad at Tanagra, the beast at Tanagra, Darmak and Jalad on the ocean." From everything he'd learned, Picard now understood this roughly translated to, Darmok sailed to the island Tanagra, Jalad sailed to the island Tanagra. They arrived separately, but united to fight the beast of Tanagra, then left together as allies, sailing away from the island. Upon hearing the story, Picard realized the other captain was trying to recreate these events, in the hopes they might forge a bond by defeating a common foe. Dathon then said, "Kira at Bashi, Temba, his arms wide," while pointing at his ears, which Picard understood meant he now wanted to hear a story from human culture. And so the captain told him a mythological tale from Earth about the warriors Gilgamesh and Enkidu at Uruk, where similar to Darmak and Jalad, they forged a friendship through hardship and shared danger. Though Dathon likely understood little, he seemed to enjoy the story and listened attentively before passing away. On the Enterprise, Riker learned the creature was once again moving toward Picard, and so ordered the attack on the Tamarian generator, which then caused the other ship to open fire and damage their warp drive. Nevertheless, the Enterprise successfully disabled the scattering field, and so transported Picard off the planet. Grateful to be back, the captain learned they were in combat against the Tamarians, and so rushed to the bridge where he hailed the other ship, and used what he learned to communicate all that occurred, explaining that they fought the creature but were defeated and Dathon did not survive. He then showed Dathon's notepad, which the Tamarians transported to their ship, but they did not take the knife, allowing Picard to keep it. In order to honor their fallen comrade, some of the Tamarians placed 2 fingers on their knives before touching their foreheads, after which the first officer, now captain, announced, "Picard and Dathon at el-adrel," indicating his respect for what they accomplished before they departed for their space. Sometime later, Riker visited Picard in his quarters and found him reading the Homeric hymns, as the captain wanted to learn more about their own mythologies in the hopes of better understanding the Tamarians. He then expressed his admiration for Dathon, who sacrificed his life to try and open communications with the Federation. Riker then left Picard to reflect upon all that occurred, and so he picked up the knife used on the planet and reenacted the Tamarian hand gesture to pay his own respect to a fallen friend. A special thanks to all those who contribute to CivilizationEx, like Tamika the Black Wolf, Sir Xavier, Defender of the Flame, Ishmael Ahmed of Shamiriana, and Admiral Flint. If you'd like to help the channel, be sure to give a like, leave a comment, subscribe, and click on the links below, or else go to patreon.com/CivilizationEx, where you can gain early access to videos and watch the Patreon-only series, Heroes of Lore and Legend.